This episode of Angles is brought to you by Richmond Vona Personal Injury Attorneys. Expect high-level communication, transparency, and cutting-edge technology to keep your case moving. Expect a legal team that's laser-focused and moves fast to get the results you deserve. When the unexpected happens, expect Richmond Vona. Learn more at richmondvona.com, 192 Seneca Street, Buffalo, New York. Welcome to Angles, the podcast where we dig into the stories behind impactful people and explore the sharp turns, daily decisions, and defining moments that shape how they got to where they are and how they keep moving forward. I'm Jon Richmond, and every week I sit down with guests who are building bold, meaningful lives and careers in Buffalo and beyond. If you enjoy these conversations, please hit follow, subscribe, drop a comment, or share the episode. It's a simple way to help us grow with the community and keep these stories coming. Today on Angles, I'm joined by Caitlin and Tom Moriarty, the co-founders of Moriarty Meats, a whole animal butcher shop rooted in old world craftsmanship and Buffalo community spirit. From France to Buffalo, their journey is all about bringing thoughtful sourcing, transparency, and scale back to your dinner table. We'll talk about starting a business as a couple, the labor behind true butchery, and why Buffalo was always meant to be home. Let's get into it. All right, I am joined today by Tom and Caitlin Moriarty from Moriarty Meats. Welcome to the podcast, guys. How you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having us.
I'm super excited to talk to you both. We'll kind of just jump right into it. I just want to start off by hearing how your paths crossed and, what sparked the idea to open Moriarty Meats.
The long story made short is that Caitlin's from Columbus, Ohio, and I went to school at Denison University, about a half hour east of Columbus. And some of my friends from college were her friends from high school. So I was back for an alumni weekend in 2012, right? 2000, yeah. And talking with some of my friends, and one of her friends from high school said, hey, one of my friends just moved to Buffalo. She's studying urban revitalization. We'll edit that.
I feel like all of this needs an edit because there's a way more succinct way to get into this.
No, it's okay.
But this is the problem. Every time we start to tell the story, there's so many layers, and that's why I kind of chuckled at the beginning because it's funny because this isn't the word I want to use, but it's almost like this fairy tale. It's like, all these little things that came together. But really the basis of it is we have mutual friends from high school for me and from college for Tom. And when we met, I had just moved to Buffalo to study the West Side, and I was researching old Italian businesses on the West Side. And then I met Tom, and he had been in the midst of trying to buy an old butcher shop on the West Side. And so it was really kind of like all of these little pieces coming together. And literally, within our first couple of dates, we were joined forces, and we were like, we're going to start a butcher shop.
That's awesome. It is kind of crazy how all these little things in your life can kind of all come together and then lead you down this path that maybe you never thought you would be on. I have that both with my business, with my wife. It's just pretty cool. Life is pretty crazy. But you guys both went to college in Ohio. I went to Miami of Ohio, and I have like a ton of friends from Columbus and in that area. So I think I have more experience in Ohio than most people in Western New York. So I get that. But you guys have sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, that's okay. I actually did not go to college in Ohio, but I did grow up there.
Okay, so you're from Columbus. Okay. So you're from Columbus, and then you ended up in Buffalo to study, is that correct?
That's right, yeah. So I went to, I was in graduate school in Milwaukee, and I chose to study Buffalo when it got to be the dissertation phase of my research, which is all the more serendipitous, really, because, I could have gone anywhere, and I chose Buffalo, and then less than a year later, I met Tom, and I felt like in hindsight that was kind of the real reason I ended up here.
That's amazing. So why did you choose Buffalo?
Well, so in Milwaukee, I had always been really interested in post-World War II neighborhood change. And so Rust Belt cities are such an interesting place to look at that. And I loved Milwaukee, but I was kind of ready for something new. And I had a good friend in Buffalo. And so I thought that it would be kind of a new place to study a lot of the same things that I had been studying. And of course I had to make an argument for it that made academic sense. But in a bigger sense, I was kind of ready for something new in my life.
And you were used to the climate, so you didn't have to. People always try to warn people, well, if you're going to come here, heads up. You're like, no, I got it.
It was really funny, actually, because even in Milwaukee, people were saying that about Buffalo, and I was like, you can't say that. You're Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You're Milwaukee. Yeah.
Exactly. So Tom, when you met Caitlin, had you already, spent time, we're going to talk about it, in Europe studying to become a butcher? Or where were you at at that stage?
Yes, I had come back maybe a year and a half before I met Caitlin, having studied butchery in France at the French National School of Butchery in Paris. I was also part of an apprenticeship program where I worked for, it was actually a large grocer down in Burgundy. That was part of the program. So the way that they work it in France is, going into a trade school, in most cases, you need to find an apprenticeship first. And then once you find the apprenticeship, the business pays for most of your tuition. The rest is paid for by the state. So I was able to get into that program, even as an American, which was pretty incredible. And I came back to the U.S. and immediately kind of was, spitballing ideas to get a butcher shop going. In the meantime, I was working for Cisco Foods as a salesman, and that's when I met Caitlin. We'd been together for a few months, and I had put a bid in on a building across from Rich Products on Niagara Street, and it looked like it was going to go through. And at the very last minute, it turns out that the seller sold to somebody else, and she told me she was going to sell to me, and it was really heartbreaking. And that kind of set the whole butcher shop idea back a long time. We then got married, we had children, we moved.
We were looking for mixed-use places on the west side after that. And even then, we felt like priced out, and how funny is that right now?
Yeah.
But that was our reality. And we life continued. But the idea of the butcher shop was still there. Tom was really gutted by what fell through. So it was tough. He didn't want to talk about it for a long time. And, I knew that I was going to be the one to kind of like keep the idea going if it was going to happen. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Hey, we all need people like that in our lives, right? I mean, sometimes those setbacks can be devastating. I've had stuff like that with the business, and it's, having like a supporting partner or friend or family member, whoever it is, to kind of say, hey, I'm not going to let you not do this and follow your passion. That's pretty powerful. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So Tom, going back, did you have like a butcher in your family, or how did you decide that you want to do this? I think it's awesome, and it's so interesting. I want to learn so much more about both of your backgrounds, but how did you end up in France, studying to become a butcher?
I was an exchange student in high school with a program called the American Field Service. So my senior year in high school, I actually moved to Spain, lived with a family there, went to school there, and came back, graduated with a class below me. And then I went on to college, studied Spanish and International Studies. Really wanted to get back to Spain after graduating, but needed a legal way of doing so in order to stay there for longer than 6 months, outside of a tourism visa. And there's only two ways to do it, either with a work visa or a student visa. Student visa is a lot easier to come by. And so I started looking into schooling over there, and I was thinking about grad school, but to be honest, I never really loved being a student so much. And so I took a certificate course just to teach English as a second language. And that was kind of the idea, was just to get over there, be able to make some money under the table at night, and then figure out some sort of schooling to do during the day so I could be there legally. And after a while, I started looking into culinary schools because I had this pipe dream of, learning how to cook a little bit. Didn't think anything would come of it. And so I applied to a school in the Basque Country in the city of Bilbao, and was accepted. And the same way as it works in France, it's all paid, for by the state. And I showed up there in fall of 2005 or 6, and started teaching English at night. And after about 3 or 4 months of teaching English at night and going to school during the day, I realized that I liked the culinary world a lot better than I did being a teacher. And it just kind of went from there. I finished my schooling, moved back to the U.S., ended up running a beef farm in Western Massachusetts. How I got into that is another kind of crazy story, just happenstance. And that got me into the meat industry, and I really wanted to learn how to cut. I was up at the slaughterhouse 2 or 3 times a week up in eastern Massachusetts, where animals were slaughtered. And I would talk with the guys every day and ask them questions. I knew how to cook all the meats, but I didn't know exactly how they were extracted from the animal. And so I thought, there's got to be a way to learn this, from the get-go, from scratch. And so I started looking into programs in France, where butchery is, a very revered trade, and it all just kind of came together like that. So no, there's nobody in my family that was in the trade. It was just kind of became a passion of mine.
That's amazing. So I have to ask, how did you get into running the beef farm?
So my brother's friend, a gentleman named John Konoff, had started this farm, River Rock Farm, in Brimfield, Mass., which is about 20 minutes west of Worcester. And he started this really successful business, raising animals and then selling to farmers markets and restaurants in Boston and surrounding areas. And unfortunately, he died in a car accident. And so when I was coming back from Spain after culinary school, I told my brother that I was starting to get interested in the meat industry, and he said, you should talk to John's family. They're looking for some help right now. They're going to close up the farm. They just need help for the summer to kind of square things away. And so I did, and I was working with his younger brother, who was studying at Yale at the time, and he kind of taught me the ropes of how everything went. Sending the animals to slaughter, raising them, feeding them, etc. And when the summer was over, he went back to school, and the father asked if I would like to stay on, which I did for maybe about a year and a half, and gained some invaluable experience, which ultimately, got me into the field.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how people's journeys kind of take shape. It's like one day you think you're going to go one area, and then the next day you're on this lifelong kind of journey to following your passion that maybe you didn't even know you had, which is pretty awesome, because a lot of people don't find that, unfortunately. When you were in butchery school in France, I'm thinking about all these things, like, were they teaching it in French? Did you speak French? Or like kind of what was, just in general, what was the school like? Because it sounds, I got to imagine it's pretty complicated, and you got to build up a pretty wild skill set to pass. Like, what was that like? Yeah,
the school wasn't French.
And he did not speak French when he moved to France.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I did not. So my brother and his wife were in the wine industry. His wife is French, and we befriended some of their friends who lived in New York City, whose family were from Burgundy, and their family ran a bed and breakfast in a very small town about 20 minutes outside of a larger city called Auxerre. And so the idea was for me to live with them for 4 to 6 months, start to learn the language, help them out with their business, and in the meantime they would help me look for apprenticeships. And it all kind of just worked out. The couple, Olivia and Nicolas, were just incredible to live with. They were so helpful. And because of my background in Spanish, I was able to pick up the language relatively quickly. I don't really write it very well, or even read it very well for that matter, but I can speak it conversationally. well enough, and so I got, we ultimately found an apprenticeship to take me on, and that got me into the school. And the way the school works is the first 2 months were up in Paris, and it was kind of a crash course in butchery. We started with cutting pigs, and then moved on to lamb, and then finally beef. And then you learn how to debone everything, clean all the muscles, and then how to present all of those different cuts and cases. And then after the first 2 months, you would alternate going back and forth between your apprenticeship and the school. It was an incredible program. This was only a 2-year program, but there are programs offered through the school that are up to 8 years. It's like you're a doctor. So I finished my 2-year degree and came back, and that's it.
That's awesome. Caitlin, can you I want to go back and talk about, you come to Buffalo, obviously you've met Tom, and it sounds like kind of right when you met him, the first butcher shop over on Niagara Street fell through. Can you kind of talk about how you kind of stayed on him and convinced him that, hey, this is something that we want to do, and even showed him how this is something you were going to ultimately help him build?
Yeah, I think that the excitement we shared from, early on was so genuine and so big that to me it was clear that there was more to it, that it wasn't just, kind of a passing idea. So I knew not to press him too much at first, and kind of let life happen a little bit and see what opportunities were going to come. But we ended up living in Mayville for a couple years after our first son, or no, I guess before he was born, but after, kind of in the midst of all this. And once we were back in Buffalo, it made more sense to kind of bring it up from time to time and test the waters a little bit. And ultimately it must have been 2017, I brought it up again, and Tom was a little bit more receptive and kind of, oh yeah, well maybe, I can start looking around. And I don't even know exactly how it happened, but he is the one who connected with the Zarconis over on Grant Street. And as it happened, they were looking to retire. So they had this butcher shop at 23 Grant Street for generations, and they were going to be closing. So Tom was able to speak with them, and we bought all of their equipment, which we still have. The cases from their shop are the cases that we moved to Elmwood when we moved locations, and we negotiated a lease with the new owners of their building there, and it was great because it allowed us to start just on Saturdays to, while we both had full-time jobs, we were testing the waters to see if this was something that, did make sense to pursue full-time.
At that point, we had 2 kids. So
I was pregnant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the first 2 years, were just crazy. We would work all week. We had a lot of help from, family, and then we had an au pair for 2 years. She was wonderful, and that really allowed us to, like she said, test the waters. And after about a year and a half, sales were trending in the right direction. And Caitlin's like, I think we should make the jump. And I was like,
well, we couldn't keep doing what we were doing because it wasn't fair to us, to the kids. I mean, so yeah. I think I was kind of like, well, why not try it full time? And we can always go back, to anything else we want. But this is our chance to really try it if we're going to try it.
And when Caitlin decides to do something, she decides to do it big. Like we could have, we looked everywhere for, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Sorry. Commercial buildings, commercial and residential.
Mixed use.
Mixed use. And there was a guy that I used to sell here at Vino's restaurant, Tony and his wife Kathy, and they're a really nice couple, and I always loved the building. And I said to him one day, I said, hey, if you'd ever think of selling the building, let me know. And he said, well, no, we're just selling the building and with the business.
You're too far ahead, though, because they weren't even selling it until, I remember, because we were in Canada with my family for a trip in 2018.
Okay.
And this building was on the market. They were selling the business and the building.
Right.
But this was long after you had been selling to them, I think.
Okay.
Anyways, so we came and walked through because we were like, oh, well, this would be such a dream. But it was like too much of a dream, right? We're like, oh, this big brick building and this restaurant space. And so we just kind of tucked it away, I think, but it was worth seeing. And he had the personal relationship to reach out about it. And then it was, I don't know, a month, 2 months, something later, where they reached back out to us and said that they were going to relist the building, but without the business this time, because we didn't need to buy a restaurant. And at that point, we were not even full-time with the business yet, but we convinced the bank to give us a loan for this
Big
building.
loan.
And so we sold our house to make it happen. But yeah, that was going all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give you so much credit. I mean, it sounds like obviously the vision was developing, and then you finally one day were like, you know what, let's just go for it. And Caitlin, I give you a lot of credit. You know, that mentality of like, well, what's the worst that happens? You know, we can just go back to other jobs, or we'll figure something out. I mean, not a lot of people have that. So I mean, I'm sure Tom appreciates that too. But that's pretty incredible. What ultimately, was there like something that changed? Was it just a passage of time, or was like, you know what, let's just go all in and do this? And like, what ultimately, you know, was the vision, or what has the vision become for the shop?
Well, I think at first, and kind of what was behind me always keeping it in my mind and wanting to keep the idea alive was that, you know, what's the point of life if you know you have this dream and you're like just letting it pass by? I don't know. To me, it was like, this is one of those defining moments of what are your values? You know, what are you showing your kids? Like, are you really putting yourself out there and trying to create the life you want? Or are you allowing all of the roadblocks and the questions to get in the way? So I don't know. I think that's something I am proud of, you know, that we really took the chance, and amazingly, you know, I think it's paid off, and now we would not want to go back to work for anybody else. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. No, well said. Yeah.
And you guys obviously, you know, like we talked about, you know, you have very different backgrounds, but it seems like it works really, really well. Caitlin, I know you have a PhD. I mean, how has that all come together? Like, how does it work so well?
I think it's so funny too when he says he didn't like being a student. I'm like, I could be a student forever. I think that's part of what I've loved about this journey is I love learning. And so I didn't know anything about Butchery, but I knew that I could be the person to make this idea a reality. And so that's part of, I think, what I've brought is really a lot of the nuts and bolts of running a business, and certainly learning a lot of that as I go. But
and how that goes.
I love it. I love learning new things. I love QuickBooks. I mean, you know, those are not things everybody has to say.
Tom, I don't love QuickBooks either. Don't.
I know. Permits. I mean, not that I like that stuff, but I can do that. Whereas Tom, you know, I mean, I remember early on too, I was like, oh my gosh, this will not happen if I'm not doing it, you know?
It's a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
She is very detail-oriented, focused. I can focus on certain things, but not those types of things. So,
but both of us have big ideas, you know, and we love that kind of global perspective. And so I think we certainly have, different strengths, but
for sure.
But also some of the same interests.
Mm-hmm. That's super important, though. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel like when two business owners, like co-founders or co-owners, are like the same type of person, it doesn't work very well. Like there's like too much of like the butting of the heads, but you seem like you guys have a really good kind of back and forth. That's awesome. And you complement each other obviously very well.
Thank you.
And I think part of it is that for us, we're living life together, you know? So even though sometimes that's a challenge when work becomes all of life, but also, you know, I think that gives us a different perspective, and ultimately, we both want to do things like travel or things that influence, the day to day, but also kind of the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you two have any rules that you put in place? Like, hey, I know you guys, I believe I read in an article that you live above the shop and the restaurant and the cafe. Do you have any rules like, hey, we're not talking about this past this time or anything like that? Or is it you just kind of go with the flow?
I think we should have more rules like that, but the reality is it's all very fluid. Sometimes the kids at the dinner table, will be like, stop. But it's hard. We live together, parent together, run a business together. It doesn't mean that we actually have a lot of time to talk about things.
We'll be right back after a word from our partners.
After an accident, life can be scary, stressful, tricky. You need Richmond Bona to help navigate the process, because getting a life-changing settlement can not only take time, it can take an emotional toll. The team at Richmond Bona provides high levels of support through all the ins and outs, so you get the settlement you need and the new beginning you deserve.
When the unexpected happens,
expect Richmond Bona.
Now back to the conversation. So, I've had the pleasure of being at the cafe, at the butcher shop many times. My wife is obsessed. We only get our meat from you guys. I'm not just saying that. It's true. Like I mentioned before we started, or I reminded you, obviously, I know you knew, but we actually got married in your cafe. It's an incredible place for anybody who hasn't been there. But you guys focus on, whole animal butchery. And I don't know that necessarily everybody understands what that means. Tom, can you kind of walk us through, what that is and why it's important?
Sure. Whole animal butchery is, something from the past, right? When we first bought this building, which was built in, I think, 1913, right? 1910?
Probably 1908-ish. I've done some research, but I haven't found the exact. I'm an architectural historian. So.
Right.
I know, I shouldn't say that.
Caitlin went through the city records, and she found this list of all the different butcher shops throughout the city, and it went on single-spaced, the tiniest of fonts for pages and pages and pages. So, butchery used to be a big thing in this country like it is in, many countries in Europe and across the world. And really, whole animal butchery is, you're not just buying in boxes of, strip loin and tenderloin and ribeye. You're bringing in whole carcasses that are raised by local farmers. And from those carcasses, you're breaking them down into retail cuts. You're setting aside meat to make sausages, smoked sausages, other smoked meats, prepared foods, cured products. So it's really, taking butchery from the very beginning, from everything from scratch all the way to the end, which unfortunately is just not the case with the way that supermarkets and other meat markets typically work these days.
So it sounds like you're trying to use every part of the animal. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
And so I know you guys have the butcher shop on the one side and the cafe on the other. It sounds like, or I believe, I kind of now I'm understanding this, like based on my experience being there. Is that why the menu changes? Kind of depends on, kind of what you got and like kind of how you're deciding to put everything together?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to commit to animals months and sometimes even years out, not knowing what our demand is going to be in the future. And the reason that is because there's only a few small slaughterhouses left in our area and across the state, even across the country. All of these small slaughterhouses are slowly closing because it's a tough business. It's hard work. There's not a lot of money in it. And unfortunately, the larger meat industry is just kind of all-encompassing and taking over. So when you commit with a farmer that you want, let's just say a whole beef, he's got to get a slaughter date first. And because there's only a few of these slaughterhouses left, there's not a lot of time slots to take care of all the different farmers throughout the area, right? And so we have to find farmers that can get slaughter dates on a weekly basis. And once they set those slaughter dates, they can't back out of them. Because if they, if we back out on the product from them, then they have to back out from the slaughterhouse. And the slaughterhouse gets upset, understandably. And so we just commit to taking animals every week, not knowing.
Even if we have a bad week,
Right.
right? We might not
Wow.
need a bunch of extra, but we can't stop it from coming
Right.
in. So we have to be really creative, but I feel like that might not be exactly the right word. But
You have to have a lot of
essentially-
avenues to move it,
Yeah.
right? So the more potential revenue streams you have to get rid of the product, the better, obviously. And the cafe is an direct result of that.
Yeah.
Did you guys, did the cafe open up at the same time as the butcher shop, or did that come afterwards?
It was after.
Okay.
And it's funny because Tom had looked at the restaurant space, or previously he had said, I will never have a restaurant near
So,
our-"
Did
But it
you
was,
push him into opening it?
I don't know about that, but it was kind of a natural extension. Once we were in this space and we built out the other side to be the butcher shop, and then you have this beautiful bar, I mean, it needed to
Right.
be something, right? And as Tom just said, it did also become a natural extension of using all of the product. And being able to expose people to different cuts as well
Yeah.
was kind of part of the idea behind it, to generate more of that dialogue between what we're doing on the butcher shop side, in the cafe. Different audiences, not everybody wants to come cook, and so being able to come in and experience what we have to offer this way was another element of it.
Yep.
But it was the end of 2021 that we opened the cafe.
Yep.
And
Okay.
the butcher shop, we built out, so we moved our family in July 2019. And then, so we were living upstairs, building out the butcher shop. And then, of course, the renovations were done and we were ready to open the doors the first week of March 2020. And so
Oh, man.
that was interesting.
I
thought
get
we were
it.
definitely going bankrupt within like the first month, because I shouldn't say that. When COVID hit and we had just, the ink was still fresh on the loans, et cetera, and the shop was now complete, and all of a sudden
It was just us and one employee.
right. You start hearing about all this craziness happening, and we opened the doors, and there was maybe a few days of normal business, and then all of a sudden, as you know, the world just got crazy. And ironically, it couldn't have been better for our business because, soon thereafter, supermarkets ran out of meat, and we never did because we deal with the local supply chain. And so we just kept getting more and more animals, and, the word spread that we still had meat, and Caitlin and our employee Andy and I, for the first 3 months, just
Cranked.
worked. Like we worked every day,
Man.
all day.
It was crazy. And we had like a 2- and 3-year-old upstairs. I mean,
Yeah.
it was crazy. But I think it was like the meat shortages, but also people thinking about where is my meat coming from.
Right, smaller shops, so they weren't interacting with so many people. They felt safer here. Caitlin started the online business at that point, so people could order online. Then we would run the packages out to their car, and the business really just it took off. We started hiring more employees to help, and it just it really grew from there. So.
That's amazing. Yes, some people have found like that silver lining from COVID. We started our law firm December 2019. And for us, we looked at it as, well, this is terrible, but at least we started it knowing that we wanted to be really tech forward and cloud-based and all that kind of stuff. So we weren't like a lot of law firms like scrambling to upgrade technology and figure out how we're going to pay these, 50 people we employ. It was just the two of us. So we got a little bit lucky and allowed us to focus on the business. But look, I think it's like you're talking about overnight, basically like starting the online ordering, all that kind of stuff, and adapting quickly. It's pretty amazing what you can do when you're backed up into a corner. You just kind of figure it out and you make it work, and you guys have flourished.
Absolutely.
That's
And
amazing.
you have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I'd love to hear a little bit more about. So it sounds like you must have to have incredible like anatomical knowledge about these animals and incredible knife skills. Like, I'm curious, I know it's probably a very in-depth, long process, but just generally, what is the process like, and how do you stay sharp on your skills?
So, we receive the animals depending whether we get beef and pork on Wednesdays. And usually at that point of the week, We've now started opening Tuesday through Saturday, so we're kind of waiting for that next shipment of animals to come in because we need to fill the cases, and it takes time. You need to, make sausages, smoke all the smoked products that you want for that week, get your prepared foods made.
But even just cutting a beef takes a lot of time.
Yes, it does. Yeah, so it's myself and a couple other guys. We break down the animal one day, come back the next, start to clean all of the muscles. Once all the muscles are clean, they get vacuum sealed and go into the cooler. And from there, we pull as needed to fill the case. That's kind of the basis of what we do on a weekly basis. And in terms of keeping sharp on the skills, there's never any downtime. As soon as you go through one animal and move that meat out, the next round of animals comes in. One thing that I think we've been really good at over the years is expanding our product offering. So, when we first opened on Grant Street, we just did fresh meat. We did a little bit of prepared foods.
I remember making sausage.
Some sausage making, yeah. And then over the years, we've really reinvested into the business. So buying better machinery, buying a large smoker, stuffers, grinders, just different things that, allowed us to make more products more quickly and have like I said, a more varied offering. And you've got to do that to stay interested because just like any job, it can become a bit tedious day in and day out doing the same thing. So myself and all the other guys are always looking for new and fun products to make. We always ask our customers, if you've been somewhere, if you've been abroad and you had a particular sausage or a certain dish, bring us the recipe and we'll make it to the best of our ability to try to recreate that experience for our customers. And I think they really appreciate that. They're not stuck to any sort of quantity. If they want something, we make 40 pounds of it. They can take a pound, they can take 10 pounds, but it allows us to constantly, reinvent ourselves on a weekly basis.
I would say, though, back to your question about kind of the anatomical knowledge, to me, one of the most interesting things when we were first opening, I was side by side with Tom. I learned a lot just hearing him talk to customers. And I think, I had never really thought about the fact that all the muscles have a different texture and a different consistency, and they should be cooked in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of those things, too. Not only is it knowledge about where everything lies, but how best to cook it. Those are the conversations that I know Tom likes to have with customers to make sure they know.
I was going to say, I noticed that. Like when, usually what happens is we'll go in, I'll get a spot at the cafe, and then my wife Nicole will go and she's picking up whatever she's picking up that day. But I noticed that that not just with her, but like all the customers, you spend a lot of time talking to them, educating them. Has that always been something you've done, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, it is. I think, we've understood from the get-go that trying to educate people on all the different cuts is only going to help us move the product, but it also creates an atmosphere that we want our customers to experience and enjoy. We try to get to know all of our customers' names, their preferences, because I think, and Caitlin can speak to this more with her background, but neighborhoods are something that are so cool and unique, and everything nowadays is so impersonal. Very large corporations, there's just not that sense of customer interaction that I feel like must have existed everywhere back in the day. And I think we both really enjoy that. All of our employees love interacting with our customers and making them feel like when they walk in that door, like they're special, and we want to know what they're cooking, and we want to be able to help them as best as possible.
And we're the most knowledgeable about it. You're not getting that same level of expertise at any other, meat counter, because we have literally seen it hanging, when it comes in from the farmer all the way through to what you're taking home. And that's not something that you get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
How do you two, or maybe it's obviously with the help of your team, how do you guys come up with the menu for the cafe? Because I noticed there are certain staples which, I'm not just saying this because you're on here. The burger is, I think, the best burger in Buffalo. It's amazing. But you have certain things, the beef on whack, that are always there, but then there are things that change. How do you kind of come up with a menu on a weekly basis?
Yeah, we kind of talk as a team. With Jenny, who's in the kitchen, she does a fantastic job. She makes all of the different breads, and she's just got an incredible skill set. So she'll ask us what meat we're heavy on, what meats we need to move, and/or what ideas, we all have. So, our menu's going to switch here in a couple weeks, and we've already been spitballing what sandwiches we think would be fun to run. And there's always specials that she has going on based on what we need to move out of the case. So it's just kind of this organic process that happens on a weekly basis, yeah. And
I think we will always have the burger and the beef on whack because they're delicious, but
yes.
Also, that's such a great base to have. We have wanted to offer variety, but not make anybody feel like anything's too out there. Mm-hmm. So we just always want to have those kind of classic favorites to offer.
That's awesome. It sounds like I'm hearing more and more, and I found this with a lot of really successful business owners like both of you, that it's like you start with a concept, you get really good at something, and then you start like building out from there. You can build out new offerings, and I know you guys now do private events. How did you get into doing private events at the cafe, and kind of what goes into that? Because again, I'm not just saying this. Your all's attention to detail is incredible. Just the professionalism and the preparation into going into ensuring that somebody's special day is just that and more than they could have hoped for. How do you approach those events?
Well, I feel like it's kind of the same core idea, right, of wanting this really genuine experience with our customers and wanting our customers to be really happy. We have a beautiful space, we have amazing product, and it's fun, to help people see their vision kind of come to life. We've done a variety of kind of more informal, like tapas parties. Those are really fun for a variety of reasons, really. And then we've done some of the nicer dinners. That's been a lot of fun as well. And it's amazing to see our space transformed during those. So thank you for helping us to see that. I think it's just really, we love to kind of what Tom was getting at as well, the sense of community that we can foster through our business and in more than just one way. And so I think between all of our different interests and kind of resources at hand, including the space and this beautiful bar, it's really fun to see it all come together. Mm-hmm.
So again, going back to, I know you guys have talked a little bit about it, and I read this article. I think it's really cool. You're looking for a mixed use place. You went all in. You sold the place you were living in. We went all in here, and I know you live on site. How is that? Or has it impacted? Kind of like how you parent, and do you integrate your kids into the business, or maybe use the business to teach them lessons? I'm just curious about that.
Oh man, the first thing that's popping to mind when you say this is just our kids like having temper tantrums on the floor in the shop. But the boys, really this is what they know in terms of their memories and everything here. And I think it is cool. They know what we do, and they get it. They've definitely had a lot of independence because we've left them upstairs alone a lot. Maybe certainly earlier than we probably would have, otherwise, but we're like, well, we're here,
Yeah.
COVID was so wild. As you know, right, we couldn't get babysitters. And
we did for a bit, and then it was really hard.
Yeah, we were just slammed with work, and they were young, right? And we had no other option, right? And so there were some times during COVID where, they'd come down, it'd be the middle of summer, they're half naked, and they're looking for something to eat, and they're throwing this temper tantrum in the middle of the butcher shop with customers in the waiting in line. But I think we've figured it out over the years. We definitely have a better work-life balance now than we ever have. Not to say that we wouldn't like a little bit more, freedom, but I feel like we have been able to manage it over the years to a point where it's not all encompassing all the time.
Well, and I think the kids have just been part of it with us. Mm-hmm. We've never tried to make it, oh, this is work and you're not permitted here or something, So I think that really it's been, I guess, kind of back to what I was saying about us. It's our job, but it's like this life we're creating together, and it goes the same for the kids. They're just part of all of the chaos and all of the different parts together. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm sure they learn a lot of lessons that kids wouldn't normally learn because they're so exposed to the business, which obviously teaches you a lot of lessons, especially through the challenges. And I always think about this. I'm sure you'll probably agree. Like before I started, my business, or it's. You have no clue how much goes into it and how many challenges there are on a daily basis. And, we learn a lot from our failures. What are some of the challenges that you two either deal with on an ongoing basis or have dealt with that you believe kind of have made you guys better as a business, or, kind of helped you learn and got you where you are today?
Yeah. I mean, at least personally speaking, not that she doesn't have to deal with it either, but the most difficult thing that I find with the business is there are no trade schools here in the U.S. for butchery. So everybody, that we bring on, we have to train, from the very first, time they step in the door, which is time consuming and difficult. And it's tough to, that's the word I'm looking for. When you lose somebody, unfortunately, you have to start all over again. And that is really hard because, you get to a point where you've got a little bit more freedom. You've got somebody, trained well, who knows what they're doing. And then, unfortunately, if they decide to leave, now you're pulled back into, covering for them and filling for them. Which as, we get older will become more and more difficult, right? So that's the toughest thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
That resonates with me a lot. Yeah, I'm not. It's not about me. Right? I know. I get it. Yeah, totally. I appreciate you saying that, Caitlin. I know you. It looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, I think first of all, just as like a caveat on that, like we understand when people move on to other opportunities.
Sure.
It's never. But at the same time, you do feel the weight of it yourself. So you're like, oh my gosh. And I think another challenge, just like you were kind of asking about earlier, what is a whole animal butcher shop? How are we different? Trying to convey that and communicate that to customers, especially without trying to put down other shops, is a bit of a challenge. And to me, it's the kind of thing where you can't really understand it until you see it. And so we've really tried also in the shop here, we built that wall with the window in it so that you can see the work being done in the back, because just how labor intensive it is and how it's a completely different world than kind of the bigger meat industry, mm-hmm. I think is really important.
Yeah, I think people in any business, but especially with something so personal, like the food they're eating, the food that they're serving to their families, their friends. I mean, transparency is key. That's another reason why I'm always so impressed by how much time you actually spend educating people and explaining to people, like, where this comes from and everything about the different cuts. I think is really cool. I think that's really important in this day and age, and kind of weaves back into, right, the whole thought about the neighborhood, like creating like this place where people know each other and people trust one another, which is sadly something that, in this day and age is not very common anymore. So I definitely applaud you both for doing that. What's next for you guys? Do you have any big plans for what you want to do with Moriarty Meats, or is it just, not that it's not enough, obviously, just continuing on, learning and being the best you can every day, or do you have maybe some other plans?
Well, there's never a shortage of ideas.
I know that goes.
That's been consistent over time.
Yeah.
So I am also curious what will come next. I think
We have
yeah, we'll see.
a number of years ago, the bakery that was next door, very nice couple that we befriended. They retired somewhat suddenly, and so the building next to us became available, and that was important to us because they used to allow us to use their parking free of charge, which was incredibly gracious of them. And so when their building came up for sale, while we didn't need the building, we did need the parking lot that came with it. So we kind of overextended ourselves a few years ago out of necessity to purchase the building next to us. And I think pretty soon we're most likely going to end up doing something with that space. We were looking to lease it for a while, but there were some difficulties with that. And so I think in the near future, with nothing concrete yet, we'll be looking to expand our retail presence over there with some different offerings that we don't currently have on this side. So I think that's the next step. So
Now we have
Awesome.
to do it.
we have to, well, I mean,
And now
we have been talking about it. So
put it out in the universe, and now you're stuck. And that's how it goes. Caitlin, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who? Let me say this. So many people who start successful businesses actually have no business background, myself included. And I don't know if I'm successful yet. I'm trying to work at this every day. But, how did you learn how to run a business so, essentially Tom can focus on, Butchery and getting better every day and making these amazing offerings? Like what advice would you give to somebody about, hey, I have no business background, but I want to start this business? Like, how do you learn? How do you go about it?
I feel like it's so important to have both the attention to detail and the what has to happen and the reality kind of aspect, but also that bigger picture dreaming, what if scenario. And I don't want to say that they have to be a balance, because I don't think that's really the right word, but I think you have to be able to really go deep into both of those areas. And at the end of the day, make choices that are moving you forward in those directions. And certainly if there's something that you're not an expert in, but it's very important, like finances or whatnot, relying on people who do have that expertise is so important.
yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
she really has done an incredible job. When we first opened the business, you don't know who's going to walk in the door. You don't know how long you might end up doing this. And there have been so many times over the years where she's pushed us to, do more, get deeper into, I don't know, she's just always pushing the envelope, and sometimes it feels, crazy and like a big risk, but it always pans out. She has a great vision and a great confidence in herself and, ourselves as a team, which is really great. We wouldn't be here, obviously, without it. She is.
Thanks, baby.
Yeah, she's incredible. So.
That's amazing. Well, obviously, you two seem like an amazing team. I guess I have one question left for you, and that is we've talked a lot about, the origin of the company, of your relationship. What's something that maybe people don't know about Moriarty Meats or don't know about the two of you that you wish they knew? I know, it's just kind of a tough question.
I know.
Well, outside of the business, Caitlin was a very competitive Irish dancer.
I love this. See, this is what we're getting at.
And
That's
she
awesome.
used to
It
travel-
was.
She used to travel across the country to other countries to compete in huge international dance competitions. And so maybe we might even just put an Irish dance studio
Irish
next
pub.
door.
There you go.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
my sister was a really competitive dancer. She danced for a D1 team in college. The attention, maybe that's where your attention to detail and your work ethic, comes from. I mean, it's no joke. I mean, it's a lot of people moving together at once, being in unison, having to remember everything. That every little detail counts. I think that's awesome.
I do think athletics for both of us was really important in our lives. Yes, Tom. I mean, if I have to shout you out now as your All-American lacrosse player at Canisius High School and goalie all through college. So
You were a goalie, Tom?
I was.
I was a hockey goalie. I played Miami, Ohio back in the day. Yeah, so we can both take the goalies are crazy jokes like that. That's okay. Yeah, I always say I think lacrosse goalies are way crazier than ice hockey goalies. I mean, you guys have hardly any equipment, and that ball is hard.
Well, it's funny you say that because I always, we grew up playing street hockey, and I always wanted to be an ice hockey goalie. And I tried to get into hockey, but it was a little bit too late. I tried to start playing going into 8th grade. And at that point, if you didn't know how to skate by then, you weren't just going to pick it up. And but I always
nobody
admired,
was going easy on you.
Right.
At that point.
I always admired hockey goalies, just their reaction time. It's just incredible, right? I mean, you look at I remember Dominic Hasek growing up, and just what he was able to do, and they get into the zone. Hockey goalies do like no other. And once they're in that zone, it just becomes like almost unstoppable to score on them, which is pretty unique. So,
yeah, that's why they call us crazy, and we get there's a lot of good jokes about that. But I think you would all both agree, right? What the background in sports, it definitely shapes you when you get older in life.
Sure.
In work and business, and that's something that you don't realize when you're a kid, or even like when you're in college. So, always have a lot of respect for people with that background, and always encourage people. To let their kids try it out, but don't push them too hard so they hate it, because it gets crazy these days. But hey, look, I really appreciate both of your time. I know you're really busy. I really enjoyed learning more about you both, and I just really want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much for
John.
having us.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Angles. If this episode made you think, smile, or see something in a new way, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review and share it with friends. You can also follow us on social media. Angles is produced by Brett Tuttle. I'm Jon Richmond. See you next time.